My wife went out last night and didn't come home until this morning. This is horrible and I'm furious right now, but I'm also depressed as hell. I know what I have to do, it's just killing me that I have to do it. It's fresh and it hurts a lot. My wife didn't come home last night. She went out with a couple of girlfriends, which is pretty normal for her. She's normally back around 2 a.m. on these nights, so I waited up. Around 2:30, I called to check in. She answered and I could hear people in the background. She told me they went to a party but were leaving in a couple of minutes. She wasn't home by 3, so I texted. It was delivered, but no reply. Around 4 a.m. I called again. It rang a couple of times before she sent me to voicemail. My wife finally came stumbling through the door at 6:47 a.m. this morning. I knew the exact time because I was worried. She was wearing a dress she didn't leave the house in, with mesh leggings that I'd never seen either. The leggings had clearly been torn and her makeup was smudged. My heart sank when I saw her. My immediate worry was that she had been assaulted. She only shook her head no when I asked her that. I asked her what she had been doing then. She only said that I knew what she had been doing. And that kind of confirmed what the voice in the back of my head had been screaming since she walked in. My wife cheated on me last night. I asked her who it was and she shrugged almost casually and said it was somebody they met at the club. She went back to his house and hooked up with him, then Ubered home. She then said she didn't want to fight and just wanted to sleep. So that's what she did. She's still asleep now and didn't even take a shower before passing out. Suffice it to say, our relationship is over. We don't have kids and we rent, so it shouldn't be an extremely complicated process. I keep trying to reason myself out of it, pretending there might be something to salvage here. I've always maintained that cheating would be a red line for me though. I think I need to stick to that now. Yeah, OP, I think you need to stick to that too. There's definitely nothing to salvage here. I believe she knew exactly what was going to happen, and I think she knows that this will lead to divorce. Maybe that's what she wants, I don't know. That's very stupid, but she clearly wanted to get caught. She probably knew that as soon as she sent you to voicemail and she didn't come home by the time she said, that you'd be waiting up for her. So she didn't even care about washing her face or changing her clothes, nothing. Which would be your typical cheater behavior, trying to hide the truth. But in this case, she just doesn't care. So you shouldn't care either and just serve her divorce papers as soon as you get them. Don't do the work to try to save a relationship that she nuked all by herself on purpose. And what do you guys think about this situation? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Would you maybe try to salvage the relationship, take some time apart to think things through, or just divorce? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they had to say. Phoenix of Asclepius says, if cheating is your deal breaker, and it's a totally reasonable one, the deal has been broken. When she wakes up, she's going to give you the whole song and dance that she was drunk, that she loves you, etc, etc. But the truth is, she broke your trust and your heart and your vows. Stick to your guns and leave the woman who doesn't respect you enough to stay faithful. And OP responds, thank you. I don't know why it helps to hear it from other people, but it really does. I honestly don't know that I want to hear her out right now. It's not like I'm going to believe anything she tells me anyway. XGV413 says, you keep trying to reason yourself out of it because this just happened and you're still in shock. The feeling of betrayal is still going to be there when the shock fades, so don't let yourself humor her now. Also, just to be 100% safe, I'd recommend an STD screening. This might not be the first time she's done something of this nature. And OP responds, I really don't think she's done this multiple times. If she had, she'd likely have come home and told me right away anyways. She's always been the kind of person that can't keep things bottled inside. I will get tested though, it can't hurt, though I am a little scared of needles. Adam of Izalith says, buddy, do yourself a favor and think about the reasons why you would cheat. Try it really hard. Still can't think of any? It's because it's not an option to you. You made a conscious decision to be with your partner and to be faithful. You can't be pried with liquor and compliments because you loved her. Now, that's what you deserve back from your partner. If she can't give that to you, regardless of the excuses she might give to you, she's not worth your love. That love could be invested in someone who gives it back in return. Additional information from OP's comments. Both our names are on the lease, so although tempting, throwing her out isn't an immediate option, unfortunately. The lease is up in 5 months. There's a penalty if I break it, but that isn't the end of the world for me financially, thank goodness. and throwing her stuff into the street isn't going to make me feel any better. I don't stand to gain anything by making a scene in the street. I did break a picture frame though. After she went to bed, I had to throw something. Not an instinct I'm used to having, but I did. Anyway, I'm considering looking to find somewhere else to stay tonight, but I also don't feel like I should be the one who has to do that. Honestly, I'm stunned and hurt, and I need to figure out a way to separate the feelings of love from the fact that she just tore our marriage apart. I keep thinking about how casual she was about it, like she wanted me to find out. She came here in clothes I literally never seen before. That casual shrug was like a knife twisting whenever I recall it. I guess her most telling reaction was her immediate one. I looked through her phone to try and collect evidence. She texted her one friend that she had fun, and then again to let her know that she'd made it home. I took screenshots and sent them to myself. I also reached out to the friend for her side of the story if she'll give it to me. They are close friends though, I'm not sure how much good that will do me. Well, the community agrees. The relationship has ended, the deal has been broken. And it seems that OP arrived at the same conclusion as I did, but for different reasons. So now it's time to move on with the first of 2 updates that OP has given us to this story. But before that, of course, here's another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after this video. Now, let's move on with that first update. Me again, folks. I'm sorry I didn't get around to this sooner. I wasn't able to get the day off from work yesterday because my boss kind of sucks. I was a complete mess at work yesterday though, so I was allowed to take the rest of the week as vacation, thankfully. I think I went through all the stages of grief while my soon-to-be ex was sleeping. I wasn't expecting my post to get any attention at all. I just figured I needed to try to talk to someone about it because I was not in a good headspace. I made the post in the morning, and by noon she was still conked out in the bedroom. I had processed things a bit more, and I had a rough plan in my head that I was starting to set in motion. I made a short list of questions I wanted answers to and gathered up all my important documents, laptop, etc. Then I went into the bedroom and started packing myself a suitcase. I know a lot of folks wanted me to kick her out. I did consider it, but honestly, I'm not overly attached to this place. We just rent, and I am in a lucky enough situation to be able to say that paying half the rent for a few months isn't going to financially end me. It'll sting a little bit, I won't lie, but I'll make it, and I feel like being around this place is only going to remind me of her anyway. I need to be looking forward, not back. She ended up waking up about halfway through me packing my suitcase. There was momentary confusion as she looked around the room, then she just started bawling. Maybe this is awful of me, but I didn't bother comforting her. I told her I had the screenshots of her Uber and text messages from her phone, and that plus her confirmation was enough that things between us were completely done. She didn't answer and she just cried louder. I debated trying to continue the conversation, but I decided to just pack the rest of my suitcase and head back out to the living room until she came out. When she finally left the bedroom, she sat next to me on the couch and asked me if we could talk things through. I told her as calmly as possible that wasn't how things were going to work. I was going to ask questions. I wanted honest answers. She told me she'd be honest, so I proceeded. My voice was shaking the entire time. It was taking me everything to hold it together, but I kept going. Was this the first time she had cheated? She started crying before she answered that, then told me no. She had cheated on me multiple times over the course of our relationship. It was, and I'm going to use her words exactly here, just sex, a way for me to let off steam. None of it ever meant anything. I wrote a comment shortly after making my post that all the love couldn't just fade away in one soup. Well, it can. It hit me right then that I wasn't dealing with my wife. The person I was married to literally wasn't in the room. This was someone different. She refused to tell me exactly how many times he had cheated, just more than last night. Had she used protection? No hesitation from her before she nodded her head emphatically. She seemed surprised I'd even asked that. I'm still going to get tested just to be safe. I did some research into timing and I'm going to look after it. Were her friends cheating on their spouses? Yes and no. I tried to get her to tell me which of her friends were cheating so I could get in contact with their spouses. She probably should have because her refusal led me to messaging pretty much the romantic partner of every one of her girlfriends I could find on social media. There are a couple I don't know or couldn't find, but I did my part. I didn't directly accuse any of her friends of cheating. I just explained my situation and she told me some of her friends were also cheating. I hope I didn't damage anyone who wasn't cheating, but I feel like the risk was worth it given what the other women are doing. Why did she do it? This was the answer that gutted me the most. I'm going to use her exact words again. I need to have sexual variety. I told her that it's not like our sex life is dull. She clarified, it's not the same as something new. I didn't even have a response to that one. I had expected something about me working too much or not supporting her emotionally. Nope, she just effed other guys because she felt like it and wanted to have some fun. When I asked about the change of clothes, she claimed that she borrowed them from a friend who wanted to match her. I asked why to pick now to stop hiding it, and the only reply she gave was that she got caught up in things that night. I know there's more to it than she's not telling me. I just don't care to go digging for it right now. Anyway, when I didn't respond, she started asking me about counseling and therapy. I reiterated that our relationship was over. I'd be leaving. What she did next disgusted me. My ex actually tried to have sex with me. She put her hands on me and started trying to take my clothes off. I felt like I wanted to vomit and pushed her away after a couple of seconds. She just kept telling me that she would figure out a way to fix it and that we would work through it together. I told her that there was no way, and she started bawling again. She went to the bathroom and locked herself inside. I was just sick of everything at that point. I called her mother and told her what was going on, the full story too, the cheating, the questions I had asked, and the fact I was leaving. I've always had a good relationship with my ex's parents. They both decided to drive to town, which is about an hour for them. Once I knew someone was on the way, I just grabbed my things and left. Her waterworks in the bathroom were just annoying me because it felt hollow to me, especially given the answers to my questions. I honestly don't know if she was crying because I was leaving or just because she was caught and the little universe she had built for herself was crumbling. I'd like to think she cared I was leaving at some level, but her response to the whole thing doesn't make me question. I ended up packing another bag before I left and took all the things that I could think of that I felt a sentimental attachment to with me. I found a parking lot and sat in my car until I was able to get in contact with a buddy for a place to crash. I tried to take a nap, but I was running on way too much adrenaline. I knew when her parents made it to the apartment because she started calling me. When I didn't answer those, she started texting me. She had gone from sad crying to furious. Apparently, I'm an effing piece of crap for telling her mom everything. Whoops, I'm not sorry. I called her mother because they're close and I wanted somebody to be in the house with her. I wasn't sticking around to let myself get roped back in, so I called her mother. Anyway, I've received roughly 100 texts from her since leaving. They range from name-calling all the way to begging me to come back to sending me pictures of the food she ate for some reason. I haven't responded to any of them. I feel like I said my piece before leaving. So that's where I'm at now. We didn't have joint finances, so that part was easy. I cancelled all the subscriptions that go to my credit card just to be sure and changed all my important passwords. I'm crashing at a friend's couch for the next bit, but I've got some feelers out to some short-term rental places until I can find something more permanent. I've got feelers out for a divorce attorney too. A coworker of mine had a recommendation, so barring something better, I'll probably go with them. I also wanted to say that I was shocked at how supportive everyone was, and thank you for that. Truly, from the bottom of my heart. It isn't easy for me to talk about emotional things with people close to me. This was an invaluable venting place for me. Thank you all so much. Well, OP, I hope this doesn't come out wrong, but I guess so far so good, considering the crappy situation. I mean, you got answers to the questions that you wanted, which weren't what you were expecting, but definitely pushed you in the right direction. I also think it's great that you didn't engage with her after you finished talking with her. That's good. No phone calls, no messages. So yeah, OP, good job. I think you're on the right track. So now it's time to move on to the final update to this story to see how it ends. Hey folks, I'm happy, I guess, to say that this will be the final update to what has been probably the most difficult chapter of my life. I felt an immense amount of support from the community here from my initial 2 posts, so I wanted to give a short update. Bottom line, my ex and I both signed the final papers for our divorce this week. It feels kind of surreal to think about that still. About 2 weeks into everything, she got resistant. I cut her off entirely and she refused to return my attorney's calls for a little while. Eventually, things got back on track. As for the infidelity itself, I don't have a ton more details to share with you. We did a short mediation, and by that time, I didn't feel there was any remorse on her end. I've talked about that a lot with my therapist. I'm in therapy, by the way. It still hurts that someone who I thought loved me could have apparently cared about me so little, but I'm working through it. It feels like a massive weight off my chest at the same time as I'm absolutely terrified for what comes next. Lol, I'm excited though. Also, in case you're wondering, I did talk with her parents a few more times. Nothing too long or in-depth. It seemed they were as surprised as I was, and didn't really know how to handle their relationship with me given what was going on. Finally, 2 other relationships ended because of all of this. I spoke briefly with both the other guys, and they both found out what I had in different ways after I tipped them off to it. An awful situation, but better for all of us in the end, I'm sure. That's really all I've got to share. Thanks again everybody for your advice and support. Well OP, again, considering it is a really crappy situation that you went through, this is to me a happy update. Because not only did your marriage to that scummy cheater of an ex-wife that you have ended, but also 2 other relationships where people were cheating ended and they were found out, so that is good. Hopefully all of the betrayed can work to move forward. As for you OP, here's wishing you all the best in the future and in this new stage in your life. Take care and thank you for sharing. Now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Now James Says What the F? What the F? Lawn Karen. I make a living doing landscape maintenance, mostly for commercial properties and wealthy homeowners. Unsurprisingly, wealthy homeowners tend to be the most difficult customers. I could probably write a book with the number of ridiculous requests I receive. I added a new customer, Karen, real name, to my weekly route recently, and the first visit to her home was yesterday. Using Google Maps, I bid on the property for 1 hour of work. When I showed up, the place was a mess. It hadn't been serviced in months. I spent 2 hours making this place look as perfect as it could. I cleaned up half a dozen palm trees, trimmed all the bushes, mowed, edged, string trimmed, and cleaned up all the leaves I was able to. An hour later, Karen calls my company, me, to complain about the work done. Apparently, they blew leaves into the corner of the property and left them. Well, that's completely BS, but okay, I'll entertain the nonsense. The leaves in question were already in the back corner of the property, embedded in the pine straw as they'd been there for quite a while. Standard practice is blowing out any loose leaves from garden beds and mulching or bagging them, which had been done. Karen didn't really want to hear the reason when I tried to explain this and insisted I send someone out to get the remaining leaves. I went back and got every leaf out of her property, including over 75% of the pine straw. Of course, she called again to complain about her missing pine straw, at which point I reiterated the same thing I told her before. I let her know that I'd be happy to replace the pine straw for $400. I haven't heard back yet. Well, Peep, she wanted you to take the leaves, and you did. The pine straw just came along, and she didn't say anything about it, so if she wants more pine straw, she can pay your price. But yeah, OP, you did exactly what she asked you to. Now, since this is malicious compliance, I wouldn't necessarily read some of the comments, but OP did give us a few responses, so let's go with that. The Human Pickle Rick says, as a landscaper who deals with wealthy clients often, I can confirm that this 100% happens on a regular basis. People with the most money never want to spend it and then bitch at you for not doing extra work they didn't pay for. Hey, while you're here for maintenance, can you trim my Bismarck palms? Like, no, Reginald K. Richmond, that requires separate equipment that I told you was necessary, but you didn't want to pay for. Then they'll try to find some trivial thing to avoid paying altogether. I had a lady get mad at my guy for not mowing to her property line, but then she couldn't show me where the property line actually was. And Dopey responds, yep, I had a lady a few weeks ago try to get me to clean up a rotting armadillo out of her backyard. It smelled like she'd literally left it there for days waiting to see if the lawn guy would take care of it when he came that week. She told me that her husband was too sick to come take care of it. After I told her to get effed in the politest way possible, her husband apparently made a full recovery. He didn't even wait until I left to come clean it up, and he seemed pissed. Like I should have to clean it up. They do pay extremely well and are neighbors to 3 of my other properties, or I'd have parted ways. People are a trip. Additional information from OP's comments. If she was this unreasonable on day one when I went out of my way and well over budgeted time, it would just get worse from there. Someone brought up that her property probably wasn't serviced in a while because she's having trouble finding a lawn company willing to work for her. They're probably right. I can put my happy face on and deal with a little bit of BS. I expect a bit with what some of them are paying, to be honest. That said, I don't lack customers and usually have the luxury of purging the awful ones. I don't see any reputable business dealing with that level of nonsense, so she might need to take her ass to Home Depot, watch some tutorials or something and do it herself. Alright, well, no point in commenting and let's just move on with the update to see how this story ends. So, a week after the events in my initial post happened, I got a call from Karen. She asked if I was still willing to do the pine straw job for $400. I told her I'd have no problem with it, but asked why she'd want to use my services again when she wasn't satisfied with my prior work. Apparently, this lady discontinued services from 3 other landscape companies in the area and was having trouble finding anyone to do the job. I'm guessing that means they all fired her as a customer for being effing ridiculous. I went and did the job this morning, and upon finishing, she was at least content enough with the work that she requested bi-weekly landscape maintenance moving forward. I politely declined, and when she asked why, I told her the truth. Ma'am, you seem to be a bit unreasonable and I don't have the desire to deal with it. It didn't go over too well, but she paid for the work today and I left. Anyone wondering why I'd go back for the job in the first place? It was an easy $200 profit for an hour of labor, so why not? Well, OP, I think it's great that you get the chance to turn down customers like this because who needs this grief? Not you. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.